Versatile Mage. Chapter 352. The Terrified City, the Skyscraping Snake. The black shadow was definitely not there before. It was currently standing between the silver skyscraper and the luxurious 5-star hotel. Its back faced the restaurant where Mo Fan was, and now it was turning around. It had a gigantic face, even though the majority of it was flat. Its two triangular-shaped eyes were glowing like spotlights lighting a logo at the top of a skyscraper. Their flicker was not too bright but was eerily terrifying, as if it could penetrate deep into one's heart. Its head and neck were almost the same width. The neck was slightly bloated, like it was wearing a giant cowl. It was entirely black in color, but one could barely see the scales on its skin under the illumination of the neighboring tower. As for the rest, Mo Fan did not dare to look any further. It was staring right at him. In fact, it would have made more sense for it to be staring at the building instead of the people in the window due to its wide vision. However, Mo Fan somehow had a strong feeling that it was looking directly at him. The stare made him feel extremely tiny and petty. It stood in the busiest district of the developed city like an emperor. Despite the countless people on the streets and the tall high-rises nearby, it was just standing there, as if it had been there for thousands of years instead of just appearing a few moments ago. A helicopter circled the black shadow, directing its spotlight at it. In the darkness, Mo Fan could finally get a clear look at its appearance. It was a snake. It had its body upright like a statue. If it had not turned its head, most people would have assumed it was a newly constructed skyscraper. It was extremely huge. Mo Fan was confident that a beast like it could bring utter destruction to the city just by moving around. However, it did not move. It maintained its posture after turning its head. The only clue that proved it was not a statue was the tongue poking out from its mouth. Heavens, what is that? Someone in the restaurant finally realized the astonishing sight and burst out screaming. Snake! It's a snake! A snake! It's really a snake! Help! The restaurant, which had been filled with a romantic atmosphere a moment ago, erupted into an uproar. Everyone's eyes were filled with extreme terror, yet they felt so insignificant that the skyscraping snake could not spare a glance for them. The restaurant was filled with screams and cries. Even magicians like Mo Fan could feel their hair standing on end, let alone ordinary people who had never seen a demon beast before. Even the razor-tail drake had not given Mo Fan such soul-trembling fear. Could anyone tell him what he was looking at? He was in Hangzhou. The modern city had been built up over thousands of years by human civilization. Why would the skyscraping snake appear suddenly at its center? Xinxia, behind me. Mo Fan bit his own tongue. Only that could help him briefly overcome the fear that was filling his heart. Standing behind the transparent window, Mo Fan did not flee like the rest of the crowd. He clearly knew that with a human's speed, it would be no different than just standing there, waiting for death in front of the skyscraping snake. As Mo Fan sensed the skyscraping snake slowly raising its head in his direction, he subconsciously dragged Xinxia, whose mind had gone blank, behind him. The skyscraping snake was extending its body. Its face slowly leaned forward, as if it had seen something interesting. It slowly approached the restaurant's window. Its lantern-sized eyes were parallel to the restaurant located on the 70th floor of the building. A pair of human eyes, despite being filled with boundless terror, had a strong determination to live in them. A pair of snake eyes, with no sign of anger or joy, were impossible to read. It was hard to tell what it was planning. Maybe it was just randomly casting its gaze, and somehow the pair of human eyes just happened to be within its vision. It might be a mindless act from the skyscraping snake, but it posed a threat that the man trying to protect the woman behind him had never felt before. The dark clouds reflected the dazzling lights of the city. The closest layer to the clouds were the symbolic skyscrapers that stood like tall trees, symbolizing the modern and prosperous human race. But tonight, they were no longer the closest to the clouds. That was a legendary snake that was straightening its body. The astonishing view served as a heavy slap to human civilization. The humiliation and tininess before the gigantic beast had completely toppled humanity's understanding of the world. People realized that they were only frogs living at the bottom of a well. It was not moving, nor destroying anything, but it was already a great calamity. The crowd, looking like dense black dots from a great height, ran in all directions. Vehicles blocked the crossroads. Many people fled on foot. A few minutes later, a few people with wings on their backs appeared. Magicians who were able to fly were highly respected among humans, as they were exceedingly powerful. However, they were like flies and mosquitoes circling around the skyscraping snake, not daring to move any closer. The good news was, the towering snake had shifted its gaze, as if something else had attracted its attention. It leaned sideways as its neck began to expand. It was as huge as a cloud. Its eyes found a focus. They fixed onto a white-shirted man with long hair flying toward it from the south. The man had long hair like a woman's, perfectly straight and flowing. He landed on the pointy tip of a nearby skyscraper. Below him was the swimming pool, where the girls from wealthy backgrounds had already fainted, resulting in a rather embarrassing view. The long-haired man raised his head and stared into the eyes of the towering snake. Among the thousands of people nearby, his eyes, sharp like an eagle's, were the only ones not filled with fear. Even though the seal on you was nothing, it doesn't give you the right to stir such a scene on the streets. The man yelled, as if he were talking to the skyscraping snake. The skyscraping snake completely ignored the man. It slowly raised its head, staring at the closest dark clouds, and hissed. Suddenly, a haze encapsulated the skyscraping snake's body. The haze was faint at first, only partially shrouding the snake's astonishing size. It quickly became as dense as the dark clouds, fully hiding the skyscraping snake within. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.